It is done. It is finally done. And my oh my, was it a learning process for me. Stay tuned so you can finally see how the Dell Optiplex turned out. Hello, what is up everybody? Keystep here. Welcome back to the channel. For those of you tuning in again for the third episode of this Dell Optiplex customization, you notice things are a little different behind me. I had to move very unexpectedly, very suddenly. And because of that, this video got delayed a little. I know in my first and second videos, this was supposed to be done by Christmas as a present for my girlfriend. Well, now it's going to become a post-Christmas present. She's aware that there was another present for her that I am still in the process of working on. And sadly, because of the move, it took us almost a month to get to this part of the video. But I promise you, this is the video where we are going to go over the customization and what we're actually going to do to the chassis of this Dell Optiplex in order to get it ready for her and to make it a little bit more customizable. So for those of you who have watched the other two episodes in the series, you'll notice that the case looks a bit different. We took off of the front Dell cover, which we are also going to customize and change some colors with it. We're most likely going to tape off this upper region. I prefer to keep this more of the matte black that comes standard with the Dell Optiplex's cases. But we're going to change the outer grate a little bit. A little more customization, a little more flair to it, something that definitely will even speak from the front that this is her case. But let's talk about the case itself. Now, the case, I've already gone through and I've taped off all the areas that I don't want spray paint to get into. As you can tell, we're using spray paint right here. So the handle, this is where the handle that opens up the case in order to get into the inside of it. I'm going to keep that as it's a gloss black finish that came from the factory like that. I think it will look real sharp with the color options that we're going to go with for the actual panel itself. And it's a little hard to tell because I can't take the case off now. But right on the inside where the fan holes are, we actually taped off the inside of it. We did this so that way as we're spray painting the case to kind of really minimize how much spray paint might get inside the case. Our goal is for none at all, but you know, there could be some seepage. We could have a little bit that just gets through, but our maximum goal is that no spray paint goes through these holes and gets on the inside of the case. Now, the inside is completely empty. I gutted the whole thing in the previous episodes, and that way, obviously, as we're spray painting, none of the internal components can get ruined. I also, between the last video and now, as you could probably tell, the case isn't as matte black as it used to be. And that's because this computer had a lot of blemishes, a lot of scratches. There's actually one that's still on the back side over here to the right that I had to go into, and I went and tried to sand it down. Now, you don't need to do a sanding process when it comes to these Dell cases. You can actually go right in and do a primer and spray paint over the case. I do recommend, because these cases are aluminum, that if you're going to spray paint, you get a primer that is for aluminum and has biting potential. So there's primers that will bite into the aluminum, and some would say it's a self-setting primer. And this means that you actually don't have to do any sanding. You can take a blanket Dell Optiplex, especially if you have one where the case is in good condition, not many dents or scratches, and you can go straight to with a primer, shake it up real well, make sure it is ready to go. Cover the whole thing with this base coat, because that is what the rest of the paint is actually going to stick to. Now, there are some videos, some tutorials where people will go straight in with paint and just spray directly and skip the primer process. You can do that in certain instances, but for a real clean look and to really make sure that your paint hangs on and holds on to the case and there's no issues, I will always recommend putting a primer on first, especially if you plan on doing multiple coats, which we are. We have 3 different colors here. All 3 of these colors are representations of her favorite colors. Her ultimate favorite is a green, kind of an emerald green, so we have a forest-ish green, the closest we can get to it. Her second favorite are between blue, which is like a baby blue, and a gray, a dark gray. So this case is going to consist of a couple of different colors. I'm not sure how much of the entire spray painting process I can show you guys. I'm definitely going to do the best I can with the GoPro and a head cam just to catch some of the spray painting process. But to give you an idea of how I'm going to do it. The primer, nothing too crazy of it. Just to make sure you shake it up real well and you can hear there's a little ball in there. That ball, you want to keep shaking it up because that ball is what actually mixes the paint inside the can. So before you ever want to spray paint something, you really want to give it a real good shake, get that ball moving, get the paint moving, even in the primers, because you want to make sure that the paint inside is nice and liquefied. So when you go to spray paint it, it's a nice, even, clear coat, a nice, even coat, not clear, across the entire case and through the entire chassis to give yourself a really nice finish. Now, there are times when you're spray painting, if you spray a little bit too much, you can have some seepage, some runoff, or there's a little, a little bubble, like a teardrop that runs down it. You have two options. And the first one I want to go with is you can try to sand it. You want to get the finest sand you can if that's an option you're going to go with, because if you sand with something that's a little too high in grit, you'll end up just sanding off the paint you've already put on, and you have to redo the entire spray paint again, which can then start leading to some evenness. The other option is you could try to get it real quick if it's still wet with a paper towel and just soak up the extra paint. You might get lucky, especially if you're doing more than one coat of each color, because if it's the first coat, you can try to clean it up with the second one, and you may be able to even out that little bit of discrepancy. Now, for this PC, we're also going to go over spray painting, and we're going to have stickers under it. I know the sparkly sticker, this is purely the sizing was right, and we're going to put a message for her on the chassis that we're going to spray paint over, let it dry, and peel the stickers off. My hope is that we get nice, crisp, clean lines around the letters. Now, before we actually spray paint this, like I said, I'm not sure how much of the process I'll be able to show you guys. But the most important thing when it comes to the actual colors that we're going to be spray painting with, including the gray, that's an important step, not so much for the primer, but definitely for the paint itself. Most paint cans, unless you live somewhere and it's very warm, it will be cold, and the paint on the inside will be cold as well. What you want to do is try to heat up the can. I'm not saying put it in the microwave. Do not put a can or anything like that in a microwave or expose it to an open flame. These will combust. These will explode if you put them in too much heat. But you want to warm up the can just a little. Now, there's two very safe ways of doing this. You can either take some warm water, boil some water, and very carefully put the can inside of it and let the paint in the can, the temperature come up just a little bit. The easiest way to know whether or not this is totally warm and the paint is fresh and ready to spray paint with is once you warm it up, you give it a good shake, and as you shake, you'll hear that ball rolling around, but you will also feel the temperature of the can change. If you're heating this up and you think, okay, the can's nice and warm, give it a good shake. As you're shaking it, if you start feeling the can cool down, that means the paint inside is still cold. It hasn't effectively warmed up the paint yet. The reason why you want the paint to be warm is because when you go on to spray chassis and you want it to be a nice, even, clean coat with no messiness, the warmer the paint is, the better it will spray and the more effective it will be when it comes to giving you a nice thin layer that's going to look really nice in the finishing product. Now, the way I plan on heating up these cans in this process, and which is one of the ways I recommend besides warm water, is a blow dryer. It's very easy. Run the blow dryer over the can to warm it up. Give it a good shake. See if the temperature changes. If it does and it gets colder, repeat the process and keep repeating it and shaking up the can until it does not change temperature. Once you get that to the solid, the temperature where it's all even, then I recommend going on and starting the spray paint process. There's only one more thing we have to do. Now, for those of you who haven't done this process, taping off each section like I did here. This is the front of the chassis, definitely the hardest part to cover up. This is where this interior piece would be. You don't have to necessarily worry about spray painting the front of this, which is why I covered the whole thing with tape. Mostly to make my life easier later when I go to put all the components back together. The only part I had an issue with was this power supply button. This piece I couldn't get it out. Well, I could technically, but there is a little metal bar in here that covers it, which makes it quite difficult, and I can't remove that bar. So I just covered it with some tape 3 times to make sure that that button is 100% protected through the whole process. And I'm not going to be spraying the front of this case, like I said. So this should be plenty fine with the button there. I also covered the entire back of the case. So the only 3 areas that have tape on the exterior is the handle, in the back, and in the very front. Now to finalize this whole part, to make spray painting much easier, obviously you want to probably do this outside if you can, if the weather is good by you, or somewhere isolated that the fumes can escape. You never want to spray paint inside a building unless you have very good ventilation. What I mean by ventilation, open windows, fans going, anything that can take the fumes from the spray paint out of the room. For me, I'm going to be doing this outside, and to help me with this, I actually went out and got a cheap clothes hanger, nothing too expensive, and I have these nice little hooks that I'm going to run into. There's a hole right here in the back of the Dell Optiplexes, which is really nice. Traditionally, they're used for locks to lock off the chassis in offices or whatnot. For this case, we're going to put the hook in there to hang the Optiplex from the clothing rack. And we have another spot in the front here that we can hook onto, which will really help us secure the chassis up in the air as we spray paint it and cover it with this couple of layers. Now, this is going to take a few days. So as we go through each phase of the spray paint, you'll probably see me different clothing, different outfits. That's why. But I look forward to it. I thank you all for coming along for the ride. Hopefully this PC turns out wonderful, and I'll check in with you guys after the first couple of coats. All right, I'll see you. All right, everybody, the base coat and the primer are done. As you can tell, we have this beautiful blue finish. So far, it is turning out absolutely fantastic. We went blue all the way around because, like I said, this is going to be the base coat before we put on our second coat and continue with the next color. I want to talk about real quick what I did in the video. I know I did a time-lapse version, but part of the video that you didn't see is I actually did another coat of blue. Besides that first coat that you see in the time lapse, just to make sure the color set in real nice. It was well and evenly distributed. And it came out great. Now, I did make one critical error that I didn't check before. And no, it wasn't with the spray painting so far. It was actually with the stickers I got. I ended up getting stickers that weren't adhesive in the back all the way around. They were only partially adhesive at the top with the intention of being glued with a glue stick and then permanently held in place forever. We don't want that. We want stickers that we can put down, we spray paint the next coat on top of, and then we can peel it off later once the second color starts to dry a little bit to give us a 2-color type of casing. Well, in order to fix that, I went out to my local hardware store and I picked up a bunch of these bad boys. Yes, these are a watt. I asked my girlfriend any specific words or terms that were special to her. She gave me 2 ideas, and we had to go out and get new stickers for it. Now, these are the same type of stickers that you would get for, let's say, a mailbox. They work perfectly the same. They're actually a really good size. They fit just nicely on the case. So when we go, we spray paint the next color, and we go to peel these off later. It should be a very nice looking overall finish, very nice crisp lines. Now, before I put these on, I want to talk about one thing. When you go to put on stickers, especially when you're planning on spray painting over them, obviously you don't want any of the second color to bleed underneath of the lines and mess up the overall shape and how the wire should look. It's very important once you figure out where these are going to go and you put them down, that you start in the middle, either in the middle here, anywhere, and you push outwards to the edges that way, and you give it a decent amount of pressure to really adhere to the first color and hold in place. In future piece step here, I just wanted to step in at this part of the video and say something very important that I found out after the fact that I want to pass on to you if you're watching this as a type of tutorial video on doing this yourself. After doing the blue coat that I had on this PC, and before I went and applied the stickers, I 100% should have put down a layer of clear coat. The reason for that is, after I did that second coat of blue, I went in and I sanded down with about 1,000 or 1,500 grit sandpaper to smooth down the blue layer. And then I just went and put the stickers on and called it a day, let it sit for about a day or so, and then went on to the next part of this video that you're going to see, which is the next color, which was the green. Everything seemed fine and well, and it wasn't until after I had gotten to the point where I wanted to peel off the stickers when I realized that the stickers had been on for so long by the time I got to when I was able to peel them off, that I was actually worried I was going to pull the blue coat off, since there was technically nothing in between the straight blue paint and the adhesiveness of the sticker. It did happen. There were 2 or 3 spots where, as I was peeling the stickers up, that the sticker had actually peeled up the blue paint underneath, and I had to spray the same blue color into a cup and touch it up with a paintbrush. It worked out in the end, but hindsight 2020, I definitely would have put a clear coat down, let it dry to protect that layer, and then sanded down the area which wasn't being covered by the stickers with normal sandpaper, and then went on to the green coat. That's my future knowledge to you. Again, this is the first time I've ever spray painted anything. First time I spray painted a PC case, so there's a lot of learning curves that went into building this case. Most of it I will talk up on later. It is done. I'm hiding it with this pillow. That's enough of me talking. Let's get back to the video. On top of that, there was another issue I forgot to make. Not with the spray painting part itself, but with a product that you will need. And that is clear coat. The purpose of a clear coat is when this is all said and done, I do my 2 colors, everything lines up, and I'm ready to say, hey, this is done. Put about 2 layers of clear coat on. This way, it will protect the computer case itself from any bangs or scrapes later that will rip off the paint. Right now, if I wanted to, I could probably take my nail, and if I gave it a good scratch, there would be a very noticeable line. The paint would come off. Even though I let this sit for 24 hours to cure, it's not protected the way it should be with just the base spray paint. The seal, which is just a transparent spray, it won't affect the color in any way, shape, or form. That's what actually protects the case from when it gets banged, gets scratched, gets hit. This is what keeps it safe. So make sure if you are doing something like this, and you're going to plan on spray painting a case, especially one that's aluminum, you want to get a clear coat for the very end just to cover it up. 2 quick coats, make it nice and even. That way your PC will last the way you designed it for a very long time. Now, that being said, I'm going to put these stickers on, and the next time you'll see me again is after our next time lapse. See you later. Okay, we are finally done with the spray painting. It came out beautifully with this green coat over top of the stickers you see here. I want to touch base real quick about some of the problems I had while I was doing this. I made a mistake multiple times in different parts of this process that I want to touch on before I go ahead and remove the sticker. And hopefully this comes out exactly how I want it to. The first mistake I did was in the process of applying the spray paint layers. I did not properly ventilate the space that I was doing it. And when I say that, I don't mean inhaling the spray paint fumes myself. I mean, when some of the days the weather wasn't too nice, I had spray painted in a more enclosed area with not a lot of airflow to move the excess spray paint out. And as a result, multiple times, as I was spray painting, part of it would be this glossy, nice look to it, but areas where the spray paint that didn't make it on the case and was just kind of floating in the air had resettled onto the case and actually gave it like a matte look, kind of a matty look to it. So I had to sand it down a couple of times and get down to a thinner layer of the green paint and spray again in order to correct and come around with this totally gloss green. Now, once we take off the stickers, we do have one more step of putting the clear coat on to protect this from any chemicals, any scratches, any unnecessary contaminants that might come in touch with this paint. Because right now it isn't the most protected. Technically, a strong chemical, maybe something like alcohol, even isopropyl alcohol could actually get this paint to come off. So by putting on the clear coat and putting a healthy amount of it on, it should help protect this case and its colors for a long time. I just want to touch base with those issues. I'm going to go ahead, take these stickers off, and hopefully when you see me again, everything will be well. I'll see you all soon. Peace Stop here. It's finally done. The PC is finally done. And I have to say, it came out pretty dang well. It's not perfect. There are some areas where I did mess up under the hands of why it took so long to make this video and why a Christmas present is now a slightly delayed Valentine's Day present. I did have my girlfriend over this weekend, and she was able to actually look at the case finalized. I didn't build the inside yet. That will be its own video next, but she did get to look at the actual case, and she loved it. There are some small nicks in here that are kind of around the case, primarily my fault, which is kind of how I had to keep moving the PC around throughout the drying process, throughout the pretty much the entire process of doing this case. But overall, when it was all said and done, we peeled the stickers off, and as you can tell, some nice crisp lines came out. Like I mentioned before, there was a few spots where the paint had ripped up a little bit with the sticker. All I did, very simple, was spray some of the leftover blue I had into a little cup. Took a paintbrush and I filled in all those little areas, and you can't even tell there's actually 3 of them along the top on this letter, and there's about 2 spots on this part here, and without really taking a hard look at it, you can't even tell. That also being said, I'm sure you're wondering why the PC is squeaking the way it is, and that's because after I went in and I applied the clear coat, which for this entire case, if I'm talking about the amount of coats of paint I used, the blue layer was about 3 coats, 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer. In between each one of those layers, I let it sit for about 30 minutes. Let the first layer dry out the best as it can, spray on the next layer, spray on the next layer. And the same thing with the green. So on the blue sides, there's only about 3 to 4 layers of total coat. I think I did an extra one on this side panel just to give it a little bit thicker of a layer. But technically, where there is the green and blue combo, there's about 6 layers of paint here. Spray paint is also, it's not as heavy as normal paint, but there's a total of 6 layers of paint before I got to the primer, just to make it all even. In between each of the layers, I did sand down the green, stuff like that, to try to get rid of any weird high bumps that there might be from paint running over or just a little debris. They call it orange peel. And it came out beautifully. Now, I sanded with the 1000 grit, and then I applied that very important clear coat that I was talking about, and that's partially why you see it shining and as glossy as you are now. Because besides just doing the clear coat, which I did 3 layers of clear, 3 full coats of clear, I didn't want to go with a 4 because the 3 seemed like it was plenty to really get in here and just protect any more of this paint being chipped off. And I didn't want to make it too heavy because sometimes the heavier isn't always the best. I came out 3 layers was good. It protected the edges here pretty well, and it allowed me to get this high gloss. But it wasn't just a clear coat by itself. For a really nice, good shine like this, which was part of the reason why this case took longer, I really wanted this to pop the way it needed to. I went out and I picked up some automotive paint detailing stuff to bring this out. I picked up some polish and some compound to really make this color pop and really make this shine come out. Now, these are the 2 types of compound and polish that I used. Nothing too fancy. I was able to pick it up at my local automotive store. Pretty simple. That cost about $10 a bottle. So definitely not too expensive in the price range. And then I picked up 2 pads, 2 types of application pads, one for the compound specific and one for polish specific. And they're typically meant to be used with, like, let's say a sander of some sort to rotate the pads, but I just did it by hand. That way I didn't accidentally go through the clear coat, because that is an issue that you can run into. If you look up any videos on YouTube about polishing, clear polish on a vehicle, they tell you to be very careful not to go too heavy with it, because you can actually go right through the clear coat, come right down to the paint, and if you're not paying attention, you're going to have to redo the entire painting process, the whole thing, down to the whatever layer you scrape down to. So it is important that if you decide to use machinery to kind of buff and sand down the case, you have to be very careful. I'm actually going to link down below 2 videos that I watched to kind of help me with this process for the first time of me doing this, especially when it came to the polishing and just really getting a nice good gloss. That video came from JayTwoCents, as some of you may know about him. So I will link the video down below to which video I kind of got inspiration from watching in order to do this. And of course, you'll see some differences between his video and mine. I added some different stuff like the stickers. He didn't do that. But the polishing and getting this nice good shine and really taking the extra time to sand it down and do this final detailing, I did get from him. So with that being said, the PC came out better than I expected. I don't have a lot of footage of me spraying the front grille here. You can kind of see it in the time lapses a little bit, but this was, I think, 1 or 2 layers of each color. It wasn't super heavy because of the material not being metal. It was more of a plastic material. I didn't really need that many layers to get it to hold on. But I did clear coat it as well. Did some polish on it to get that nice shine. Threw the Dell sticker back on, the Dell placard back on. But one thing about the sticker is there is no i3 sticker like there was before. And I told you guys I was planning on reusing that sticker, but it's not on there for a reason. And that reason will become apparent in the next video when we go and put this PC back together for the final product, boot it up, get things downloading on it, and we can show you what this Dell Optiplex stock can put inside and what it can be upgraded with. So stay tuned. Thank you all for following me. For those of you who are new to the channel, please go down, click subscribe, click the like button if you like this content. I do plan on doing a much more expedient version of one of these builds. I'm going to buy another Dell Optiplex and shoot it all through one video from start to finish. The disassembly, the sanding, the spray painting, the reassembling, the whole nine. So it's not broken up into these 3 sections like this. This is more of a montage-y type of storyline video for those of you who are into that. But yes, thank you for coming out. I appreciate every single one of you. Please go down in the comment sections and let me know what you think. And I will see you in the next video. See ya.